All right. Good evening, everyone. Tonight, we're going to discuss some of the laws of the Nazarite, the Nazir. It's called in the Torah the Nazir. And we'll see how we are actually pretty lucky to be able to learn a fascinating idea and teaching from the way these laws of Nazir played itself out in the course of history, particularly with Samuel the prophet. So let's begin with the words of Torah, introducing the mitzvah itself. So page number 1, page 105, text number 1. Shalom, take it.
God spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to the children of Israel, and you shall say to them."
Bless you.
Thank you, sorry, excuse me. God spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to the children of Israel, and you shall say to them, a man or woman who sets himself apart by making a Nazirite vow to abstain for the sake of God. He shall abstain from new wine and aged wine. He shall not drink even vinegar made from new wine or aged wine, nor shall he drink anything in which grapes have been steeped. And he shall eat neither fresh grapes nor dried ones. For the entire duration of his abstinence, he shall not eat any product of the grapevine, from seeds to skins. All the days of his vow of abstinence, no razor shall pass over his head until the completion of the term that he abstains for the sake of God. It shall be sacred, and he shall allow the growth of the hair of his head to grow wild. All the days that he abstains for God, he shall not come into contact with the dead. To his father, to his mother, to his brother, or to his sister, he shall not defile himself if they die, for the crown of his God is upon his head. For the entire duration of his abstinence, he is holy to God."
So becoming a Nazir means adopting a unique way of life for a duration of a period of time. If you want to, you can boil down the laws of Nazir to 3, as Maimonides does. Text number 2. Heidi, you want to read?
Okay, text number 2. There are 3 matters forbidden to the Nazirite.
Yep.
Okay. Ritual impurity representing from the contact with a human corpse, shaving his hair, partaking of products of the wine. This applies both to the fruit fruit or the waste products of the fruit, alcoholic beverages made from dates, figs, or like are permitted to a Nazirite. The what is that word? Shekar, forbidden to a Nazirite by the Torah, is an alcoholic beverage made from the mixture of wine.
Okay, so ritual impurity, hair, and wine. Abstain, make sure you don't come into contact with any of those 3. That's the recipe for a healthy Nazir. Now, after the Nazir is finished with his period of Nazirite time, or her period of time that to become a Nazir for, the Parsha describes that what they had to do, the process through which they ended that period of becoming a Nazir. And if, for whatever reason, they did drink wine, or if they did, for whatever reason, come in contact with the dead body, or if they did cut their hair while they were a Nazir, so then you had to go to the temple. They would have to shave their hair in the temple. They would bring a special sacrifice, and then the Nazir would reset. The time clock would reset, so to speak, and they would begin fresh from anew. How long was one a Nazir for? So when someone said, "I'm a Nazir," without specifying a time, usually means 30 days. You're Nazir for 30 days. But it can go forever. You can be a Nazir for your entire life. Not only is a Nazir not allowed to do these things, but rabbinically, a nazir shouldn't even come close to drinking wine. Shouldn't go to a bar. Forbidden from walking into a bar. Forbidden from socializing with people that are drinking. And the same thing is with the other areas as well. Since he's forbidden from cutting his hair, so he's forbidden also rabbinically from combing his hair with a comb, because pretty much it's inevitable that if you comb your hair with a comb, you're going to have hairs on your comb from your body. So that would mean that you've just removed, you've taken out some of your hair. So the rabbi said you don't even comb, rabbinically, you don't even comb or brush your hair using an implement. You can use your hands or your nails, but not a comb or a brush. Now, interesting that actually the nazir can only be a nazir in the land of Israel. It can only be fulfilled, the obligation can only be fulfilled in the land of Israel. When the Jewish people kept the laws of Tumah and Tahara, ritual purity and ritual impurity. Our sages made a rule that anywhere outside the land of Israel automatically makes you ritually impure. So if someone leaves Israel for a trip, automatically they become ritually impure. So it's impossible to ever be a nazir outside of Israel based on this rabbinic inaction, because you're always impure, right? So practically it can only be in the land of Israel. If one was outside of Israel and they obligated themselves to become a nazir, so they would have to travel to Israel and fulfill that duration of time in the land of Israel. As you can read in text number 3, 3a, 3b, and 3c.
So you can't go to a Seder.
Seder.
Passover Seder, if they're drinking grape juice and wine. Right?
Yeah, if they're drinking wine, only. Yeah,
But he can't even drink grape juice because that's from grapes.
correct. Very good point.
So
I
what
have
can
a
he do?
question.
You can't do it. Yeah. You can't do it.
What is this Nazarite?
It's a nazir.
What is that?
Nazir means someone who refrains. So that's exactly what we're
He is what?
describing. Someone who refrains from,
Oh.
who vows to abstain from wine, ritual impurity, and ritual impurity and cutting their hair. Now, what about today? What about becoming a nazir today? Yeah, Baruch David?
Do you have anything to add to the particular injunction against grapes in all their form? Because we know grapes are wine and wine is a symbol of joy. Is this a rejection of the symbol of joy on a symbolic level? Why single out the grape?
Why specifically the grape?
Yeah.
That's what they defined. That's what the Torah defines a nazir as. I'm sure there's much to be written and spoken about on the subject. As you mentioned, the grape and the wine definitely alcohol plays a part. But as we learned in text number 2, that it wasn't about the alcohol, because you get alcohol from other forms that's permitted, specifically the grape. This was what the Torah defined a nazir as. Okay, someone there? Now, what about becoming a nazir today? What about if someone wants to become a nazir today? Can one become a nazir today? So it's highly problematic, and therefore very not recommended to make this vow of becoming a nazir today. Number one, when you become a nazir, what concludes the Nazirite period? is sacrificed in the Beis Hamikdash. So today we don't have the sacrifice in the Beis Hamikdash. So you can never get out of becoming a Nazir. So it would become a permanent condition for you that you're a Nazir, because we can't bring a sacrifice.
You can still do it. It's still allowed.
What?
Is it still allowed if the person makes that choice?
It's probably
So
discouraged,
that's what
right?
we're talking about
It's
now. So
strongly
in theory,
discouraged.
it's discouraged, and for the reason being that it would last forever until Mashiach comes. And even when the temple stood, the rabbis weren't so fond of one becoming a Nazir, because in general, in Judaism, we don't really subscribe to and focus on and highlight abstention and asceticism and refrain, because if something is permitted to you, as we've discussed many, many times, the purpose is for me to engage with it and to bring out its holy value and its godly purpose in this world. But by abstaining from something which I'm permitted to engage with, I'm losing that opportunity, which is why our rabbis ask, what do you bring a sacrifice for? What sin is there in becoming a Nazir? At the end of the day, you have to bring, at the end of the period, you have to bring a sacrifice in the temple. So text number 4, Simon.
Rabbi Eliezer Akapar, the esteemed, says, what is the meaning when the verse states, and make atonement for him, for that he sinned by reason of the soul, number 6:11. And with which soul did this Nazarite sin? Rather, because he deprived himself of wine, he's called a sinner. Now think about it. If a Nazarite who deprived himself only of wine is called a sinner, how much more so in the case of one who deprives himself of everything?
Right? So this is the reason why. Now, to be perfectly honest and very clear, although in general, this is the approach of Judaism, that we're looking to engage with everything which is permitted to us, nevertheless, there are times where and when one should abstain and refrain even to the extreme. And when is that? When do we promote, when do we appreciate such a type of a behavior?
Fast.
Huh?
Fast.
Well, that would be not permitted to me. On a fast day, you're not permitted to eat or drink. So when would it be that in theory it would be permitted, but nevertheless, when we suggest it's looked up to, and that would be if a person really has a problem with this type of behavior. So in those moments, for example, if there's a certain type of permitted food or any other type of intake, which is permitted theoretically according to Allah, but it's dangerous, it's harmful to me, either it's harmful to me physically or emotionally, psychologically, or it's harmful to my relationships with my friends, etc., etc. So then, although it's permitted to me, nevertheless, we highly suggest that you abstain from that completely. We don't want you to engage until you are healthy enough to be able to take it in moderation, because everything has to be had only in moderation. You can't be gluttonous about anything. And therefore, except for Torah study, and therefore study in general is a good thing always. But when it comes to certain things, so we say, if you're not strong enough, if you're not healthy enough, so then disengage completely. Walk away 100% until such time that you're healthy. Text number 5, Baruch Dov.
Ooh. Rabbi Shimon Hatzadik said, in all my days as a priest, I never ate the guilt offering of a ritually impure Nazarite, except for on one occasion. One time, a particular man who was a Nazarite came from the south, and I saw that he had beautiful eyes and was good looking, and the fringes of his hair were arranged in curls. And I said to him, my son, what did you see that made you decide to destroy this beautiful hair of yours by becoming a Nazarite and thus being required to shave it? He said to me, I was a shepherd for my father in my city, and I went to draw water from the spring, and I looked at my reflection in the water, and my evil inclination quickly overcame me and sought to expel me from the world. I said to myself, wicked one, why do you pride yourself in a world that is not yours, in someone who will eventually become worms and maggots? I swear by the temple service that I shall shave you for the sake of heaven. I immediately arose and kissed him on the head. I said to him, my son, may there be more who take the Nazirite vows like you among the Jewish people. About you, the verse states, a man or woman who sets himself apart by making a Nazirite vow to abstain for the sake of God.
So you see that Rabbi Shimon HaTzadik was clearly teaching us that someone who takes such a vow to combat a personal struggle with materialism, so under certain circumstances is considered appropriate, and not only appropriate, but even praiseworthy. So this is, in summation, we learned the Torah's introduction to us about the Nazir, what a Nazir is, boiled it down to 3: abstaining from becoming ritually impure, from cutting one's hair, and from any derivative of grape. And then we learned how a Nazir, in theory, one could become a Nazir today, but it's very problematic if one would make this vow to be a Nazir today, because you can't get out of the vow, because there's no Beis HaMikdash. And in general, it's not praiseworthy, it's not looked up to behave in such fashion. But nevertheless, we just concluded that sometimes it's very important for one to make such a vow and really quit cold turkey, as they say, to get away from this problematic food or this problematic issue that one is struggling with. Now, historically speaking, we did have people that were a Nazir forever. They were always a Nazir. They were born and they died a Nazir.
How can you be born a Nazir?
Very good question. That's going to be the subject that we're going to address. So we're going to discuss today primarily Shmuel, Samuel the prophet. Shmuel HaNavi became the Jewish leader in the year 890 BCE, 17 years after the birth of King David. So David HaMelech was 17 when Shmuel became the Jewish leader. And he was the prophet who oversaw the transition from the nation that was led by a system of judges to a nation that would be led by a monarchy, starting with Shaul, King Saul, and then from King Shaul to King David. Now, he appointed King Shaul in the year 879 BCE. So 11 years after Shmuel HaNavi becomes a Jewish leader and prophet, he oversees and appoints Saul to be the king of the Jewish people. There are 2 books in Tanakh named for Shmuel, Samuel 1 and Samuel 2. So he's quite a prominent figure in our history. The original prophet, as we'll call him, Shmuel was the first and original prophet.
He wrote Rus, right?
Shmuel wrote the book of Rus.
Yeah, and that's going to Astro.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, okay.
Let's discuss the birth of Shmuel. Shmuel had a mother. Correct. Shmuel had a mother whose name was Hannah. Hannah was, that's a Jewish name. Okay, beautiful. Hannah was one of 2 wives to a gentleman by the name of Elkanah. So Elkanah had 2 wives, Hannah and Penina. Penina had children, but Hannah did not conceive. And this troubled Hannah very, very much. It bothered her very, very much. She wanted to have children. She wanted to have a family. Elkanah would make the pilgrimage to, at that time, to the Mishkan in Shiloh 3 times a year. And Elkanah was a very wealthy individual, and he took very good care of Hannah. But to Hannah, all of the care and the love was meaningless because she didn't have a child. One such trip that they made to the Mishkan in Shiloh, and Hannah decided that she was going to pour out her heart to Almighty God and ask God to please bless her with a child. And we read the story on the first day of Rosh Hashanah in the Haftorah. This is the opening of the book of Shmuel. And it is from this story of Hannah praying that we learn out much of the laws of prayer that we have today are derived from the way Hannah prayed. So Hannah's prayer and the story of Shmuel's birth plays a central role in Judaism today. It's the source of a lot of what we do as Jews today. Eli was the Kohen Gadol. He was the high priest. His name was Eli. And Hannah prays and makes a vow to God that if God blesses her with a son, then she promises that she would dedicate him to divine service his entire life. She makes this oath, this vow to Hashem. Eli observes her lips moving, but doesn't hear anything. So he thinks that the woman is drunk. He thinks there's something wrong with her. Something doesn't make sense. She's expressing herself, but there's no sound. There's nothing coming out. He doesn't hear anything. So he tries to tell her, like, you can go, but she says, no, you got it all wrong. I'm here to pray because I really need God to bless me with a child. Text number 6, Mark.
And Hannah arose after eating and after drinking, and Eli the priest was sitting on the chair beside the doorpost of the temple of God. And she was bitter in spirit, and she prayed to God and wept. And she vowed a vow and said to the Lord of hosts, if you will look upon the affliction of your bondwoman, and you will remember me, and you will not forget your bondwoman, and you will give your bondwoman a child, and I shall give him to God all the days of his life, and no more shall come upon his head. And it was as she prayed long before God that Eli watched her mouth. But Hannah, she was speaking in her heart, only her lips were moving. Her voice was not heard. Eli thought her to be a drunken woman. Eli said to her, until when will you be drunk? Throw off your wine from upon yourself. Hannah answered and said, no, my Lord, I am a woman of sorrowful spirit. Neither new wine nor old wine have I drunk, and I poured out my soul before God. Take not your bondwoman as an unscrupulous woman, for out of the abundance of my complaint and my vexation have I spoken until now. Eli answered and said, go in peace, and the God of Israel will grant your request that you have asked of him. And she said, may a bondwoman find favor in your eyes. The woman went on her way from me, and the face was not sad.
So to her great joy, Hannah's prayer is answered, and she conceives, and she has a son whom she names Shmuel. Why? Because Hashem she'iltiv, I asked him from God. So that's what I borrowed him from God, maybe. She was true to her word, and from a very, very young age, she would bring him every day to Shiloh, to the Mishkan, and he would sit under the tutelage of Eli, the high priest, and a moira. She never put on his head, she never cut his hair. So the Gemara learns in text number 7 from the Mishnah. You see number 7. Shmuel was a Nazarite, because it says in Moira Vayala Roishoi, and it says by Shimshon Umoira. That's what we're talking about over there. Look at text number 7. It says by Shmuel also that the word Moira, which means the Gemara is learning a razor. So based on this, we see that Shmuel and Samson was also a Nazarite. Okay, so they're both Nazir, just like Shimshon never cut his hair.
But
Samson
Mora could also mean a teacher, right?
And I just was
Moira can mean
thinking,
fear also. Yeah, correct.
Moira,
That's
teacher.
Moira loyala Roshin. Moira was never put on his head. The Moira learns that from Samson that it means a razor. Fine. But here's the question. This is what we're going to focus on now. Text number 8. Shalom asked the question before. Again, what's the story over here? How did Shmuel become a Nazir?
Because she vowed that if she had a
Because
child.
she vowed that if she had a child, she's going to keep him to make him a Nazir, right? So asks the Radak, Rab David Kimchi, Vatider Neder Ani Tama. I have a question over here. How could her vow apply to her child that he's going to be a Nazir? Because your mother says something when she's pregnant, that means that you have to listen. I mean, really? We have no choices in life anymore. Whatever your mom says when she's pregnant about you, and that's it, you're stuck for life. And secondly, he didn't exist in the world even. So how is it even possible for the vow to even take effect within him? He wasn't in existence yet. A vow has to hold on, something has to hold on to it in order for it to be something, for it to be meaningful. Otherwise, it's just an empty word. So firstly, how does he become a Nazir? How could she even make him a Nazir through her vow? And secondly, he didn't exist. So then how would it have any effect on him? He wasn't born yet. And he says, I haven't found the rabbis discuss this anywhere. Like this is like a grade 1 question. Well, she made him a Nazir and we walk away blindly? How does that work that she made him a Nazir? Not in the Medrash, not in the Talmud is this discussed. One might try to think and say that when he was an adult, he became a Nazir. But we don't find anywhere that he did this. There's no recording that he ever went on his own and became a Nazir. And our rabbis are learning that he became a Nazir from Chana's vow. So how could the rabbis learn that out from the fact that his mother took a vow? How could this possibly be? And secondly, or thirdly, we can ask the question, if it didn't have any legal effect on him, so why did she make the vow? Either way you look at it, there seems to be a problem over here. If it had an effect, how does that work? And if it didn't have an effect, so what was she doing? What was she saying? So we're going to address this question by introducing a very interesting question, another question in Judaism. And that is, we know that in Yiddishkeit, we allow people to convert to Judaism. We allow for non-Jews to convert to Judaism. But here's the question. Can a minor child convert to Judaism? A non-Jew who's a minor, and he or she decides, I want to be Jewish. Today, at 4 years old already, they make a lot of big decisions for the rest of their life. And the world is promoting such behavior more and more, unfortunately. But you have a 10-year-old, he has Jewish friends, let's say. He likes the way they observe Shabbos. He likes the way they behave. He likes the way everything. And he comes home and says, I want to become Jewish right now. I want to become Jewish. So what's the halacha? What's the law? They come to the rabbi, they say, Rabbi, my son, he's 10. My girl, she's 10. They want to be Jewish. Yes or no? Can they become Jewish or not? What do you think?
No,
I
Probably not.
agree.
It's a life.
not old enough.
Not old enough. It's a lifetime commitment that we say you're not mature enough.
Right.
Huh? So that's what one would think that this is.
Maybe they could
Let's go through
study,
the process.
maybe they could study about Judaism, that nobody could stop them from doing that.
So let's understand. What does it mean to become a Jew? If you're not Jewish and you want to become a Jew, it's like a man who wants to become Jewish. So there are 3 steps to the process. There has to be immersion in a mikveh. There has to be circumcision. And there has to be accepting all the mitzvahs.
Mhm.
Now, it takes a long time to make sure that someone is Circumcision doesn't take long, and the immersion in the mikveh doesn't take long. But accepting the mitzvahs, you have to prove that you're really accepting the mitzvahs. You're not just playing games over here. So what about a minor? Obviously, a minor could go to the mikveh. No problem. Obviously, a minor could be circumcised. No problem. So the real question we're discussing over here is, can a minor accept upon him or herself all of the mitzvahs? Can they say, I am committed to being a Jew? Everything I've studied, I know what it is, I'm ready, I want, please accept me as part of the Jewish people. So contrary to what everyone's opinion was today, the answer is yes. A minor could convert to Judaism, as the Code of Jewish Law states in text number 9. Razan. 9.
Regarding conversion of a Gentile who is a minor.
We have to go a little bit louder, please.
Regarding conversion of a Gentile who is a minor. If he has a father, the father may convert him. If he has no father, he comes on his own accord to convert. Faith then converts him, or converting is considered a privilege and we are upon someone even in his absence. Whether his father converted him or the Beit Din converted him, he may repudiate the conversion when he reaches adulthood. In that case, he is not considered a Jew who has abandoned Judaism, but rather he is considered a Gentile. This applies only when he didn't live like a Jew after reaching adulthood. However, if he led a Jewish life after reaching adulthood, he cannot later repudiate the conversion.
So how does it work? It comes out a very, very interesting thing over here. Let's understand it. So the child says, I want to become Jewish. So we tell the child, fine, you can become Jewish, you live like a Jew, we accept you as a Jew. The moment they hit 13 years old, what happens now?
Continue with the lifestyle.
They can either continue with the lifestyle, or
Which means they accept it.
which means they can either continue with the lifestyle that they already bought into, or they can reject it. They can say, I'm not interested in this. I'm not interested. So the parents come and a non-Jewish child, right? It happens very frequently today. And when they turn 13 years old or 12 years old, they'll find out they'll ask the child, do you want to be Jewish or not? So according to the Code of Jewish Law that we just read here, you don't have to ask them, because as long as they continue to practice, that means by default that they accepted it. They have to specifically reject it in order to opt out. But you could opt out the moment you hit 12 or 13 years old. This is a very, very interesting law over here. So the question now becomes, when did they become Jewish? At what point do they actually become Jewish? They converted at 10. So are they a Jew from when they're 10, or are they a Jew from when they're 13?
They're Jew from the beginning.
Huh?
They're Jew from the beginning because they're so Jewish.
Yes, it's true, but that doesn't mean they're a Jew from the beginning. Now they have a Jewish soul. Part of the process of going to the mikveh. Or the way they put in the words of the Talmud, the Gerik, this guy, a person who converts is considered like a newborn. The moment you convert, you're like a newborn now. You're fresh in this world. So what do we consider it over here? When did this person become Jewish? When they were 10 or when they were 13? Right? An adult who becomes a convert has no opt-out. Once you're in, there's no out. That's what we learned before over here, right? We said it clearly over here that if the child opts out at 13 years old, it's not like a Jew who opted out. We say they're not Jewish. They were never Jewish and they're not Jewish. So how do we make sense? How exactly does this work? So text number 10, Simon.
Although the child was already converted and became a Jew as a minor, in which case it would seem impossible for such a person to later come and repudiate that conversion and revert to being a Gentile. We can explain the law as follows. The conversion of the child as a minor means only that the child underwent the process of conversion. The child still isn't fully considered Jewish until reaching adulthood. But when the child reaches adulthood and doesn't repudiate the conversion, the child now becomes fully Jewish retroactively. Therefore, no further immersion is required, and the conversion process administered as a child by the father or by the Beit Din is enough.
It comes out that we have what's called confirmation. We need confirmation. The moment you get confirmation, it shows you that this actually existed retroactively. Until you have that confirmation, so then everything that happened up until this point is meaningless. If you don't get the confirmation, if you get the repudiation, so then nothing wrong. We love you anyways, but you're just not part of Bnei Yisrael, which is fine. So the way we understand it now is that everything happened already. The only thing we need to do now is to confirm that which was already done. Nothing you need to do further. Everything you needed to do, you already did. You don't need to go through the process of conversion at 13. You already did that at 10. But you do need to confirm that process which you already started. We find something very interesting. When someone makes a bracha, every time someone makes a bracha, I make a bracha. What do you guys say?
Amen.
Amen. Says the Gemara, and the most interesting little piece of the Gemara, text number 11. Shalom.
Rabbi Yossi says, the one who answers Amen is greater than the one who recites the blessing. Rabbi Nahore said to him, by heavens, it is so. Indeed, the military assistants initiate the war, and the mighty follow them and prevail.
So, in other words, the one who's making the blessing, this analogy over here is like the one who's going to the front lines and initiating the battle. The one who answers Amen is like the mighty ones who follow and actually know how to win the battle. Now, it comes out from here. What's Amen? Amen is a
I
confirmation.
agree.
I agree. I'm confirming that which you said. Says the Gemara, what's greater, the one who made it or the one who confirms it? The one who confirms it. Now you can understand this from simply why. Why is the one who confirms it greater than the one who makes the bracha? I made the bracha. You answered Amen. How is it possible that you're greater than me?
Because
All you did was say Amen.
Without the confirmation, it's complete, it's not.
My bracha is fine with. If no one was around, I would still have my full bracha. So why is the confirmation greater? Because let's think about it for a moment. Why did I make a bracha? For a reason, whatever the reason is. But I made a bracha for a reason. Why did you answer Amen? No reason why. You have no benefit. You're not doing anything now. You're not engaging with anything
you're
now.
seconding the motion.
In other words, there's nothing personal over here. All I want to do is confirm that declaration of Hashem's name that you just made. I want to confirm that because I heard someone blessing God. I want to confirm that I'm in on that as well. I get no personal benefit over there. It's not my obligation. It's not my pleasure that's taking place over here. It's somebody else's. That's why my confirmation is even greater than your blessing. There's no personal agenda over here. There's no personal obligation. There's no personal benefit. There's no personal pleasure. So the Rebbe ties that idea over here of confirming the blessing is greater, and then the one who makes the blessing to the minors, the non-Jewish minor who's converting to Judaism. The father or the bestin did the whole process of conversion. And now, this 13-year-old who we consider to be mature enough to make this decision does nothing but continues living as he or she was trained, yet this is what gives it the confirmation. The bezdin or the parents do the conversion, and all they have to do is, I confirm. That's me. Yes, amen to that. Amen, count me in. And then they're all good. Now we can understand how Shmuel became a Nazir. Chana made a vow. All Shmuel didn't have to say, I want to become a Nazir again. All he had to do was live like a Nazir. The moment he lived like a Nazir after he was 13 years old, that meant that the vow that was made already, he confirmed it. Once he confirmed it, he was in. He was a full-fledged Nazir. If he wanted to opt out, he could have opted out. There was no guarantee. There was no guarantee that he was going to opt in to his mother's vow. So his mother trained him for many years to be a Nazir. But that training didn't make him a Nazir. What made him a Nazir was, as an adult, when he lived like a Nazir. All he had to do was confirm it. And then he became a Nazir. He didn't have to do anything else. So now this leads us to another question. Why did Chana make the vow on his behalf? If the vow didn't actually effectuate him becoming a Nazir, so why did she even make the vow to begin with? Let him decide on his own if he wants to be a Nazir or not. Why did she have to make the vow? And well, let's ask the question: when did Shmuel become a Nazir? Did he become a Nazir when he continued living like a Nazir at 13, or did he become a Nazir the moment he was born? How are we going to address this? So the answer is that even if Chana's vow did not make Shmuel a Nazir, it did have the legal effect of making it so that when Shmuel did become an adult, by his confirmation alone, he would have become a Nazir. So she did have some role to play in his becoming a Nazir, but he had to confirm it. So like the minor who became the adult, like the minor who became the convert, they only fully become a convert when they confirm it. But we can say once they did confirm it, it actually started retroactively. It started way back when they were still a minor. Based on this model over here now, it teaches us something very important when it comes to parenting. It teaches us something very important when it comes to perhaps even studying about Torah and mitzvahs that we're not yet observing. How so? What's the idea over here? So today there's a new phenomenon maybe in life where there's a growing movement, unfortunately, of parents or maybe people that are not even parents, but they decided they're experts. And the movement is all about not teaching your children any ethics and values. Society will raise them on their own. You just have to give them some food, a place to live, and everything else. We don't teach them anything about life, nothing about values of life, about importance. Everything hands off. Whatever they'll learn, society's going to teach them. Whatever it's irrelevant to the parent what they come up with in 25 years from now and there.
You have to be in a very good environment for that to.
You have to be in a very good environment. That's you just imposed your value on somebody else because you said they have to be a good environment for them to have your values. But they don't care if they don't have my values because my values are not going to be imposed on my child. I'm such a good parent that I don't impose my views onto my child. I let them figure out life for themselves, and they, with enough proper language explaining this, they can convince many people that this is the appropriate way for child rearing. That God forbid you should impose any view, anything that you think is right, anything you think is moral onto somebody else. They'll come up with their own morals. They have their own values in life. It's a very terrible thing. It is a terrible thing. I agree with you. Now, what do we see from here? And we see the flip side of it. If I'm going to raise my children with a certain lifestyle, anyways, at the end of the day, unless you're going to force them forever, they'll have the choice to do whatever they want. Anyways, it's possible they're not going to live up to my standards. Anyways, it's possible they're going to reject my morals. So what's the point? Eventually, everybody will grow up. Everybody will learn from other people. Everyone will discover other lifestyles besides that which they were taught at home. So for someone will be 5, for someone will be 10, for someone will be 20, will be 30. Everyone will figure out eventually, unless you're living in some cave, everyone will learn about life. And then they may reject it. So what's the point? What's the point of waiting until they're 30 and to reject it? Don't teach them anything now. And they'll figure out life on their own. They'll make their decision. So we see from here something very interesting over here. Hannah vowed that her child is going to become a Nazir. Hannah trained him to be a Nazir. Knowing that at 13 years old, it's possible he would say, I don't understand this. Take one sentence. They say, are you interested in becoming a Nazir? You say no, he's out. If he wants to be Nazir, he has to take upon himself the vow like any other person in the world. Just with one word, no, the whole thing is gone. 13 years of training out the window. With one word, no. She knew that, but she did it anyways. She did it anyways, because we can't be passive educators. Judaism doesn't subscribe to this idea of letting a child just roam free and run around and figure out life on their own. A parent has to educate. It's the obligation of a parent to teach their child. We have to teach our children. We can't be passive about it. We have to be active in their education. We have to give to them that which we received, those important values, those important ethics that we know to be true. We have to train the youth. We have to educate the youth with these, knowing full well at the same time we're not going to fool ourselves. We know that it's possible that someone may reject it. As an adult, they may say, no, I don't want this. This is not the type of lifestyle I want to live. That doesn't change what a parent's obligation is. And then we see something interesting, or something that we know to be true, just from your own life. If at 13 years old, or every point in life, if you had the proper training, so then there are no guarantees, but most likely, most of the time, if you're a betting person, you would bet on, the odds are in your favor if you bet that absent any negative, harmful abuse or the like, if it was done with love, most of the time they're going to absorb it and want to continue. Most of the time. They're going to see the benefit and they're going to appreciate it, and therefore they're going to continue. It doesn't mean that every child is going to be an exact copy of their parent. No. Every child has their own brain. Every child has their own heart. Every child thinks and different than their parent and has different emotions than their parent. But it's going to be my version of that which I was taught. It'll be my little flavor, my unique flavor that's introduced to the world. But where did it start from? Where did it all come from? If I continue that lifestyle, the moment I say yes when asked, it goes retroactively back to when I was born, when I was starting to be inculcated with these ideas and these ideas. And as I said, the same thing applies to really when it comes to studying a Torah subject that I'm not yet observed. I should study about it anyways. That's like a minor approach, because there may yet come a time in life where I will be inspired to engage with this mitzvah. I will be inspired and motivated to act upon this teaching. And then I've had the training already. Not just because you had the training doesn't mean that you actually enter into the major leagues. Not everybody who goes through the rigorous training enters into the major leagues. Now, for a Jew, everyone is capable of entering. You just have to want. The moment you say yes, you're in. The playing field is open for everybody. So it's important for me to study about something that I'm not yet ready to observe, because it's important for me to know about it. Because the moment I want to, the moment I'm ready for it, I have it already. All I need is confirmation now. I don't need to go through the whole training. I don't need to call up and say, now teach me Aleph. Now teach me what's this law and what's that law and what's this meaning and what's that meaning. I had all of that already. Now I'm 13 years old with already an education, and all I have to do is opt in. Or to put it even better, all you have to do is stop opting out. The moment you stop opting out, automatically you're included in. And then retroactively, all the time and all the effort that you put in for studying, it goes back to, it started actually from there. You don't want to know when my journey really began? My journey began when I started studying about this mitzvah. That's when this mitzvah became a part of my life, not when I started observing it. The moment you start observing it, retroactively it becomes a part of your life when you actually started studying about it, or when you learned about it for the first time. So this is a fascinating teaching that we learn from Chana. Let's just read the final text. The Rebbe teaches text number 14. The Rebbe writes, this further underscores the greatness of Chana's prayer and her vow. Though she knew that her vow alone could not turn her son into a Nazir, if as an adult he wouldn't agree to it, still she was certain that no moira razor shall come upon his head. Namely, she trusted in her prayer that he would certainly agree to her vow and be a Nazir his entire life. That's the mother intuition. She knew, a mother knows, if I am going to train and give my child with love and show them the value of something, they will connect with it if it's done in the right way. So she bet on herself. Chana bet on herself. God, you give me the child, believe me, I'm going to take care of the child. Even though she knew full well, 100% guarantee she couldn't make. This is a lesson for us in raising healthy children, how a parent should never think, God forbid, that you have to be hands off when it comes to education. A parent shouldn't think that just because I'm hands on doesn't mean there's a guarantee in life that he's going to listen to me. No, both of them are not true. What we do know from Chana is we should bet on ourselves. We should all bet on ourselves like Chana bet on herself. I am going to engage with my child and give them the best that I can possibly give in the most loving and kind way, in the most wholesome and inspiring way. And then I bet on myself that when this child turns 12 or 13 years old and they're asked, do you want in? They're going to say, yes, this is my lifestyle. This is what I choose. Anyone have any questions?